thank you for tuning in to my weekly Q&A video. In this video I'm gonna go over how I use the pickup selector, so just some stuff about the different sounds that I have in this guitar and how I use that when I'm playing. I'm gonna talk about sight reading and especially like what kind of positions you should use and keys and a few hints on actually how to sight read in general. I'm gonna talk about how you can learn standards, how long you should work on them and what you should work on and what you need to be able to do. And then there's also a question about how you think about yourself and how you judge yourself when you're improvising and get into the right state of mind when you're trying to play or to perform. So don't forget that if you have a question, then leave a comment on the video. It's fun to do these videos for me, so if you have any questions, then please leave a comment on it. You can also send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. At least that's where I get the most messages right now. So questions are really welcome. And also, if you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, then you can also go to my website and sign up to my newsletter. I make a newsletter, or send out a newsletter every month. And that's just a way to sort of keep up to date with what's going on. So if you'll hear about if I'm playing somewhere, if there's like new videos or pictures from concerts or tours that I played, if I'm being interviewed somewhere or just stuff like that. And it's also a nice way to reach me because you can always answer the newsletter and get in touch with me. So let's just get started. Can I ask how you use your pickup selector switch, or do you just always use your neck pickup? So it's true, I use my neck pickup most of the time. I think that's like 99% of what I do. Right now when I'm playing with my own band, I'm only using the neck pickup, so I'm never going to the bridge. So maybe just to go over that, so my neck pickup is a Seymour Duncan Seth Lover, which I think is a really great pickup. And then the bridge pickup is an original from this guitar. I actually don't know what they're called, but they're like, I think also just before the famous ones from the Schofield model. So it's not that one, but it's a great pickup. Like the sound of it, there's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, so my sound basically is this, and then I use my volume and my tone a bit, well actually a lot. So I'll clean up the sound by just turning down the volume a bit, if I feel like I need to do that. And then if you want a little bit more compression, then you can dig in and basically it almost works like a dry pedal. I can just turn on like that. And then I'll use the tone. I'll turn that down. It depends on the room, I think. So if I find that in some rooms where you're playing, there's just really a lot of high frequency, and then you want to take that down a bit because it gets harsh. But most of the time, the way I'm set up right now, it's not such a huge difference. But that's what I would use the tone for. So I'll just set that while I'm playing the first song or sound checking. And then yeah, so that's what I do. Then with my own band, I use this sound, and then I also have like one more overdrive. So that will be this. So, yeah, still just using that one. Of course, I could probably easily use. But as soon as I get into the neck pickup, no, sorry, the bridge pickup, somehow I want to play more like, and it doesn't actually fit the music that well. But maybe that's also just a habit of mine. And the middle position of these pickups is, I think it's wired so that they're out of phase because it's very soft. Now I have a lot of overdrive, so like this. That's this sound. And I never use that because that's just hard to get to anything out of, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Never really found any use. I think I need to have that checked and see if I can fix it or change it to something more useful, because I'm suspecting that it's out of phase. And then of course we have like the where I do use the bridge pickup a bit is for the more sort of funky things. So which I don't do that with my own band, but I do have other places where I need to do. those kind of things, and it works really well for that. So, and already just with the the sort of low gain setting. So my setup is an overdrive pedal, like sort of a tube screamer into a Fender Twin. So, and that's that sound. And of course you can still clean it up a bit if you want to, without really losing a lot of volume. So. Which I think that's sort of one of the great ways for me to get more sounds, is just to use the volume button a lot. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm doing when I'm playing this guitar. I think, and it's pretty much the same with most of my guitars probably. I think with the Yamaha I have hanging behind me, which I'm actually sitting right in front of, I can see here, but it also has some chord tabs, and they actually sound pretty good, so I use those quite a lot for like sort of more funky rhythm sounds. But that's also because that guitar is taking out to like fusion gigs and stuff, so I need that kind of sound there. Hi Jens, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your content. I recommended all my friends to your channel and they say the same. I have another question for you if you have some spare time. How long would you recommend working on a standard? I'm learning Misty right now and I have the single note melody, the chords and the chord melody arrangement down. But as you know, the possibilities are endless as far as what you can add harmonically and rhythmically. Thank you. It's really great to hear that you get something out of the videos, and I'm also very grateful that you're recommending me to your friends and stuff like that, and helping me spread the word about my lessons. That's a huge help. So with this thing with learning standards, I think if I had a list of what you need to be able to do with a standard, then probably the things that you're talking about here, so knowing the melody, knowing the chords, being able to harmonize the melody, is probably just at the top of that list. The only thing you're not talking about is improvisation. I think that's something that you need to be able to do as well. So you probably want to work on it until that you can improvise on it without that being difficult. And probably that's where you take it to the level where you can play it just with a metronome. So not leaning on a backing track or something that's sort of giving you all the information of the harmony and the form. So you really know it in that way, and you can just hear the changes in the back of your head while you're playing. And one way of working on that is, of course, just to play the changes themselves. That works really well in a ballad, that you can actually get away with just playing. So in that way, you can of course just experiment with it, or just play single note lines. I'm doing this like this in the video now because it's sort of easy to hear what's going on. But if you're working on the song and you already know it, you already play the theme, you can probably hear the changes and then just be. So you can of course just work on it more loosely like that, and that has to be easy. I think Pepinthini once said that people were asking him how he could play All the Things You Are that well, because he played it as freely as if it was compared to somebody else playing a blues, and he just said, well, yeah, I know All the Things You Are just as well as I know a blues. So maybe keep that in mind, that it's okay to just spend, if you already are at the point where you really know the song, if you can spend like half an hour improvising on it, and then, because that's the point where you're going to challenge yourself, you're going to get into places where you need to play something else, unless you're going to be playing the same all the time. And there you're really learning something, and also really getting the freedom on top of the song. So that's the only thing you're not talking about, so I would say, like, check that out. For the rest, it sounds like you're really on a good track. Because if you know how to do all of these things, then go learn another song. You need to learn several songs, and you also kind of need to put them next to each other and realize like how they're different, but also how they're similar, because that's going to make it easier to learn the harmonic language of standards as a whole. Yeah, and then I think the only thing that might be worth mentioning is also that since you're aiming to be free when you're playing it, so you want to make sure that you can also play the song in like the melody in different positions. That's always a good exercise to do. You don't have to do it with all songs, but if you never did it before and you're already working on this tune, then that's a good place to start. That's also quite doable with this one actually. And also when you're, I don't know if your chord melody arrangement is something that you've like figured out and practiced, and then you always play it like that. Which is one way of doing it. There are really people who do that, and also like colleagues of mine and stuff that really just have one way of playing a song, and then that's how they do it. Personally, I like to keep it more open, which also means that I can't play. Well, I can't play it. I'll probably play the song. I don't know the song that well, so maybe I'm gonna mess it up. So I can play it like this, where it's like a full chorus for all the voicings there. But if I'm playing with a bass player, and most of the time when I'm doing these kind of chord melody stuff, chord melody arrangements, then I'm playing with a band. I'm playing with a bass player and a drummer actually. So I tend to leave out the roots and focus a little bit more on moving around. And there you need to be a little bit more open, and also if you can practice it in a way so that you have options all the time, then you can it's easier to make variations from chorus to chorus, so you don't have to play every A part the same and stuff like that, which is actually sort of important for the attention of the listener. So Misty is an AABA form, so you kind of you can play the first two A parts pretty much the same, but the last A part, maybe you want to change some chords around, or you want to change so you can go like. And then just add bits and pieces. Like now I'm doing it, as I said, I don't really know the song that well, so I'm just really doing this on the fly and adding stuff. I didn't want to add the descending bass line thing in the A flat D flat because I already used it once. But looking for those kind of things, or even just like sort of like the difference between and just adding the chords notes a little bit later is already adding some things. So you can also start thinking about those variations. Of course, I'm just adding to all the things you can do, and all I'm saying is if you try them out, you don't need to be able to learn them. I think you have to get out of the mindset where you say, well, I need to learn to do this perfectly and then I can move on. You just need to try it. You can try it on this song, and if you work on it from sort of an open perspective, that's a possibility, and you also do it on the next song you learn, then eventually it will all get better, and you will be more open to use it when you want to, which is kind of what you want, I think. I don't think you want to have it sort of set in stone as an arrangement all the time, and then just sit and study it. I don't think it's efficient. I also don't think it's that it's what you really want as a jazz player. I think sort of these set chord melody things tend to be a bit boring, really. So keep it open. I think that's a much better way to approach it. I got another question. I'm just learning sight reading, and I'm not sure if there's one perfect position for sight reading on guitar. In some positions you are far away from the bass notes, in other positions you gotta switch while playing. What position would you choose if you just start sight reading? I'm gonna have to assume that this is probably mostly about sight reading something that's jazz, because I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be different if you have to sight read something that's like country or something that's heavy metal. So in that respect, I think But it's also like the stuff I've had to sight read have been mostly jazz, of course, and then if not jazz, then most musical, those kind of things, and they're also written out pretty much in the same way. So that's what I can talk about mostly, and for the rest I don't really know. I don't have too much experience with it. In general, I want to say that sight reading sometimes it's becoming this thing for people learning, that they have to be able to sight read everything, and they think that they'll get a lot out of the sight reading, and yeah, you have to be a little bit careful with that. I think sight reading sometimes is overrated. You don't need it that much, probably, but that's a whole different story. Maybe that's something I should cover in another time. So if you are sight reading and you're working on that, I think, so you talk about range, because of course that's the thing, like you need to have the notes within reach, and I have to say that when I've been also talking to other people who sight read, then I think we tend to actually stay around here in the middle of the neck, and mostly you do that because that's where you have the middle, like the biggest chunk of what you need is going to be here. You don't need the extremes that often. If you're playing guitar in an orchestra, then you don't really need to be on the lower strings that much, and then you have, like, you can go down to the C, and then you can probably stretch down to an A, and then there's not really a lot left. So that should cover you quite well, and the same goes for going up. And otherwise you need to move. I mean, that's just how it is. When you're sight reading, it can be useful to be able to read ahead and then realize that you have to play certain things where you want to move position. So that could be if you get stuff like maybe different arpeggios and stuff like this, and then sometimes you can just see, well, okay, this is going to be really easy if I play it like, you know, I mean, so, and then it's going to be much more difficult to play that in one position and get it to sound good than if you move around. So then you should move around. Don't be afraid to move around when you're sight reading. I don't think it's really too much of an issue. It's all about having the overview and knowing where you're going. So yeah, so you determine the range by just, like, if you get the sheet music, you look at it and you can kind of look like, okay, what is high, what is low, where do I need to watch out. The other thing that you need to do when you're working on sight reading is be aware of what key you're reading in. I think that's there aren't that many people who talk about this, but actually you read music in a key, and one really huge advantage for reading music in a key is that you can hear music in a key. So so you get, like, if I know I'm in B flat, I know what the D sounds like because it's a third of the key, and that means that I know what a certain note will sound like before I have to play it, and that's a huge advantage in making music out of it if I have to sight read it. Of course, you can't always do that, and some of the pieces you have to play don't lend themselves to that. Maybe they're not even in a key, but if they are in a key, then use that as much as possible. In the same way that you want to get used to reading arpeggios, so you want to be able to read, just recognize, like, okay, this is a major 7 arpeggio, or this is, you know, I don't even really think about it when I'm reading it, but the fact that you can recognize that it is something like a triad or an arpeggio or a shell voicing or whatever means that you can read 3 notes at once, or 4 notes, and that gives you time, and it makes everything relaxed, because you can also you already know, if you know your arpeggios and all that, you already know how to play it, and then you can worry about what's coming afterwards. So I think that's an important thing that most people don't talk about too much. This idea that you sort of relate what you're playing to the content in the sense like it's a key, and you're playing structures, so you might as well right away recognize the structures, because that's going to make life easier. And also, even if you get the structure wrong and you think it's a C major 7, and then it turns out to be like an A minor triad with a B on top of it, so it's instead of then that's just going to be like one wrong note in the middle of it, and that's anyway not going to be as important unless you're playing really slow, of course, but then there's not a problem reading it. So yeah, so think about the key, and choose probably, if you don't know, if you don't have any idea, then choose somewhere middle middle of the neck. I think most of the time when I'm reading, I'm here, really. And also, I even had my luthier tell me that he can literally tell that my frets are worn more here because I play more there. That's the place where I get the most sound of it. If the guitar is so that I don't need to be down here when I'm playing with other people, because I'm gonna be in the region of the bass player, and if I go up really high, it works well for some things, but that sounds silly, you know. So that sounds much better if you have that down. And yeah, so I don't find myself using this too much. And I think in my case, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but you can really see if I do this. Like here, there's nowhere, and then here it's pretty warm, to the point of I need to have work done on it. So yeah, so for that reason, like, so this middle area is a good place to start, and then determine the key, know what fingering you want to use for the key. Just have it in the back of your head when you're playing, and then sort of the other things will come along the way, I think. So to the question, my biggest problem in improvising is the improvising mindset. I know my scales and theory pretty well, and I know that I can play nice lines when I'm in the flow state and I don't care about my playing. But how can you not care? Do you have times when you think that you suck and you can't be at your best creative performance mindset because of that? And if you have, how do you deal with that kind of stuff? So this is probably something that everybody has. I think most people have times when they're really unhappy with how they play, or what they're playing, or some aspects of what they're playing, and think that they suck because of that. I know that I do, at least, and I know that the people that I work with do as well. So, and also I come across this in students, and you see it all over. Everybody have periods where they're like, okay, I can really play, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and other times it's like I'm really working on this and I don't feel it's working, I'm not getting anywhere. Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a solution to it. I think in a way we're lucky because we play jazz music, and jazz music is improvised, and there are so many factors involved in a performance that it's music that's created in the moment, and you have to leave it in the moment also. So it doesn't mean that you can work on aspects of your playing, but you also have to realize that when you're on stage performing or in a practice room or whatever, then this is what you played at that time, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. That's part of the process. And if you play everything safe, then probably sounds boring. So sort of the nice thing about it is that you're taking chances, and if you don't take chances, it's not exciting, also not for you, and then it's not going to come across as being exciting either. So yeah, so there's some training in having played something and then just accepting it for what it is. So you just have to walk away from it, and if you feel terrible about it, then don't judge it. I think that's also something you can train. I think I do that actually, that on a day where I'm not feeling happy about whatever in my playing or in my interaction with the band or something, I try not to judge it too much. I really just try to leave it behind me. If I want to judge it, then probably if I'm recording it, it's easier because you can get some distance. You need the distance sometimes to be away from it. You cannot judge a performance on how it felt to play it, is my experience. So you need to actually record yourself and then leave it for some time to have an idea about what it actually sounds like, and then you can notice the things that you want to work on. And I don't know if you need to do that at all. I would say recording yourself is always good for sort of tracking progress and noticing what you need to work on, because again, you can't really tell when you're playing. You need to stand on the outside when it comes to a lot of things in playing to get a really good idea about what's going on and how it sounds. So I think that's really important for that development, that you record yourself. And I also think it helps with not judging yourself. So if you get lost in thinking about, also while you're improvising, if you're thinking about and evaluating all the phrases that you're playing, then you're not focusing on the music, and that's that's a sure way not to get it to sound good. You know, I mean that's going to ruin everything. If you're every time you play something you're thinking, did that sound great, or sort of have an idea about it in that way, and try to put some sort of value on it like that, then you're not focusing on what you need to play next, and that's what you need to be thinking about. Actually, you probably want to be at a point where you're thinking about what you want to play next while you're playing what is already going on, and you're listening to what the other guys are doing, or what the backing track is doing, or where the metronome is. You know, I mean, whatever you're doing with that, and then that's what you want to focus on. And you need to leave alone all the things about, okay, that doesn't work, or that works and that doesn't work, while you're playing too much. Because if you focus on that, then you're going to be away from the music. You're not thinking about the music, and of course it's not going to sound good. So that gets into the thing with the flow state, because I don't really know what a flow state is exactly. But I think it is this point where you want to, when you're playing, you need to some degree lean back on the stuff you already practiced, and then just listen to what's going on around you. So again, like, listen to the other musicians or the backing track, and then try to get that to sound good, and just to play what comes out of your fingers and what you hear. It's really vague, but that's kind of what you want to have when you're playing. Also because that's probably going to give you the best performance. And you can train if you have the feeling that the problem is more in if you are performing or playing with other people, then I think one way to train that kind of stress, because that's a stress reaction probably, is to record yourself often also. So see if you trigger that if you record yourself. Just try it out. You know, record yourself on your phone and see if it makes it difficult for you to just lean back and play music. If that's the case, keep doing it. You know, get used to it, because it's just like you're just stepping, sort of getting out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself into this stress of being recorded, and hopefully that's gonna eventually make it easier for you to get more relaxed in that situation, and also and I personally find that recording myself is much more stress than playing with other people, because playing with other people, again, if you played for a long time, you're really used to sort of this whole idea that everything is in the moment, and a bad solo lasts 2 minutes at most, hopefully. So then it's over, and then it's gone, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And so recording might be a sort of a heavy stress factor for it, but it can be a good way to do it. And then when you judge yourself, keep in mind what you're working on also. So if you're not working on your timing, don't judge your timing. If you're not working on melodies, then don't judge the melodies. If you're working, so focus on what you're working on, and try to improve that, and don't try to sort of go overall like everything is horrible and I need to fix everything, because it's not going to get you anywhere anyway. So be specific about it, and then also just accept it for what it is. I mean, we all have to do that, and there's always going to be stuff where you listen to a recording of yourself where you go, that didn't come out the way I wanted it, or I messed up a phrase, or I mean, that's just how it is for everybody, and you need to just get used to that, and then just see it as a process, as something that you're working your way through. There is no goal. I think we have to not, as musicians, we have to work in a way that's not goal oriented. We have to work in a way that's continuously keeping the development going, and just looking at not reaching some sort of goal, but just having the feeling that everything gets a little bit better. Nobody's gonna have perfect time or perfect technique or come up with a perfect melody every time, and you probably don't want to. Even if you listen to it, it's probably going to be boring. So in that way, it's something that we keep developing and we keep working on it, and you just see small differences, and that's also how you should judge it. So so I hope this is not too rambling. It's a hard topic to discuss, obviously, but it's also a very normal thing to have a lot of issues with, and it's something that everybody deals with also. So for that. It's a really good question. That was some answers to some of the questions I got from you guys. I think some of these things that, some of the topics that I was talking about in this video and some of the questions that I got are maybe even opening up a discussion, especially if you think about these things about learning standards. What do you need to be able to do with a standard before you think that you actually know it? That's something that that I at least find interesting, both as a teacher but also as a guitar player. Like how do you guys think about this? When do you think that you know a standard? And another thing that I also think is interesting, and I would also really love to hear some feedback on from you guys, is this thing about judging yourself and getting yourself in the right frame of mind to perform and to play, and also how you think about judging yourself and how you work with that in a way that it's doable for you. So if you have experiences on this, then I would be really grateful for comments on this. I think that's a very interesting subject, and I think it's also something that as a community around my videos everybody could learn something from. So please leave a comment on that. Of course, if you have a question or any other kind of remark, then leave a comment on the video, then I'll try to get to it. I get to most of the questions actually, so so if you do ask me, then there's a big chance that I actually will get to answer your questions. Maybe I actually will get to do all of them. I think there's a few that I haven't done from the beginning, but I'll get there, I think. And also, if you don't want to leave a comment on the video, you can of course send me an email or a PM on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Usually I respond to everybody if I see the message. Sometimes the messages, especially on Facebook, are sort of hidden because they're like message requests, so I don't get to them right away, but usually I think I find them. So yeah, so that's it. If you want to help me and if you want to support my videos, check out my web store. I make lessons there as well on a monthly basis. And of course, if you want to keep up to date with what I have in the web store and all the other things that are happening, so interviews and if I'm playing somewhere, there's gonna be some trio concerts coming up soon, I think. And of course we're playing twice with Traben in November also. So there's stuff happening besides the lessons. Then you can go to my website and sign up to my newsletter. There's of course a link in the description to my website. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until Thursday.